What was your favorite board game of 1991? Welcome to Pegwarmers, I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Today we're checking out an issue of Zillions magazine. This was a Consumer Report magazine for kids. The issue I have here is from February and March 1991. It's got a spoof America's Crummiest Home Video Games on the back there with Bob Saget caricature on the back. Really gives you a sense of the timeline. I got several issues of Zillions and some other Kids Consumer Report magazine from the home ec teacher at the school I worked at many years ago before she retired. She was cleaning out her room, and I was giving her a hand, and I kind of sifted through some of these magazines. We threw a bunch of them out, but any one that I felt like had something interesting about like toys or video games, I grabbed. And so I have a small stack of these, and I've been meaning to do something with them for a while, and I just kind of came across them again and decided to check out this issue. I don't know if this is the best issue to start with of these, but this is the one that's going to make its Pegwarmers debut here. If you guys like this, I might check out some of the articles in other issues as well. Some parts of this read like a middle school textbook. It's not real flashy. I think a lot of the things were submitted by kids and then kind of punched up. They have articles in this issue about the fast food challenge, board games, Secret of the Gap, the clothing store, how to do your best on tests, crazy music, video game violence, and environmental boycotts, as well as some of their other standard articles like letters and money talk and the sneaky sell. Page 8 and 9 starts off with the board games, winners and losers. So this is an article rating some games. Kid testers have weighed in on these things. Think back to 1991 if you were alive then. What board games were you playing? I felt like we always played a lot of old games. We had games that were like my parents' or games I guess they bought us but just were timeless. Stuff like Sorry and Monopoly and things like that. But then, you start reading this and I think back on some of the really 90s games we had. First up is Girl Talk Dateline. So Girl Talk was a brand. It was a game for girls to play. It was kind of designed to be like a slumber party type of game where you peer pressured your girlfriends into calling the boys they thought were cute or wearing a zit sticker on their face and all these silly challenges. My sister had that game. It was not a game I could play with her or her friends when they were over because it was very much set up to be for boy crazy girls. So it was very gender specific. It wasn't just like a pink colored board game. It was literally like you probably had to be a girl. But the sequel, Girl Talk Dateline, is talked about in this issue. It says it's by Golden and requires a tape recorder. I do kind of remember having a cassette tape, but I don't remember working quite the way this article talks about it.
Talk, girl talk, talking about Dateline!
So basically, you match up two different teen cards, a boy and a girl, you stick them into a little speaker that comes with the game, and somehow what's being played from your tape recorder comes out of the speaker when the two figures are plugged in, or the two cards are plugged in, and you get to hear part of their conversation. And your goal is for the people you match together to land a date, not get stuck with a mindless small talk that doesn't go anywhere.
It's a game of...
Tell me, can you go?
Yes or no?
The article says that the tape recorder plays the whole time, and that sometimes you just get mindless music or dumb small talk. I don't remember the mindless music part. I can't remember if we used to stop it in between phone calls, or if somehow the game worked a little differently. Maybe there was like a second edition or something. Or maybe it was exactly what it's saying here, and I'm pretty rusty about it because I probably only played it once or twice with my sister. The kids in the magazine labeled it a big mistake, meaning it's not fun. It's fake, it's dull, it takes no skill. Because this game was just matching up a boy and a girl and hoping that they would land a date, it wasn't like a weird game to play. I mean, it was not necessarily my favorite game to play, but it wasn't like a game where I had to prank call a boy or whatever, or I don't know, whatever you had to do in the real Girl Talk game. Anybody could play it. Like, I remember my sister and I playing it with my mom, because you just pick two, this girl and this boy, let's see what happens. But not a real winner there. The next game is The Simpsons Don't Have a Cow Dice Game. The article says you roll dice hoping to get matching Simpsons family characters, so I guess you're trying to get multiple Barts to show up on the dice, or multiple Homers. You get to wager chips or gain chips based on getting those matches. But when it's not your turn, you get to wager on whether the other person will, and you're trying to get the most chips. The kids weren't a big fan of the game. All 3 kids that tested the game said it was pointless and boring. They said it was a big mistake. This game takes forever. You roll dice and earn chips, but it just wasn't that motivating. I did reach out to a friend of mine who's a pretty big Simpsons collector to see if he had it or remembered playing it. He said he's pretty sure it's in his collection, but if he ever played it, it would have been in 91, and he didn't remember how it went. So if you had the Don't Have a Cow dice game, please let me know in the comments down below. What did you think of it? Are these kids crazy, or was it a fantastic game? Next up, we've got Domino Rally Neon Super Deluxe Set by Pressman. Anybody remember Domino Rally? It was a pretty prominent brand in the 90s. There were lots of different sets with different features, different Rube Goldberg device type things.
Introducing Domino Rally.
I had it, was frustrated by it, liked it in concept enough that I tried to play it lots and lots of times, but never had any real success. There were some bridges that came with it you could set the dominoes on that I would sometimes use with other toys. Yeah, you'd be setting up dominoes. You'd spend a half hour setting up dominoes and then accidentally knock the whole thing down. But like the back half would fall, and then the front exciting part with the Rube Goldberg stuff wouldn't go off. Or, the Rube Goldberg thing would accidentally go off and set off all the dominoes. And that's basically what the kids in the magazine article said. They rated Domino Rally poor. It's a great gift for someone you don't like. The kids talked about needing lots of patience because you accidentally knock things over while you're setting it up. It's fun when it works. That was the best thing anybody said. Yeah, so Domino Rally.
And now, Super Deluxe Neon Domino Rally. Get all 4 sets.
They talk about Clever Endeavor here. I'm going to skip that one because I don't even remember that game. It got a mixed verdict. Next up, Rattle Me Bones. This is a plastic skeleton hanging on a ship's wheel. There's things dangling off of it. Each turn you spin a spinner, it tells you what to remove, and if you take it off too uncarefully, or enough weight comes off, I don't really know what trips it, but the skeleton will shake and send everything flying.
Welcome aboard, mateys. Rattle me bones, rattle me bones.
It actually reminds me of a more modern game that I actually got to review for Play Monster called Orangutan, which was an orangutan hanging on a spring-loaded rope, and you had to hang different things on the orangutan, like a barrel of monkeys type monkey. And when it got to be enough weight, it would patwang, orangutan, and throw everything everywhere.
Oh, my friend, are here. Rattle, shake it. Rattle me bones. Turn the lights low. There's a frightening.
I remember the commercials for this. I thought it looked cool back in the day. It got mixed reviews from the kids. One of the kids says it looks cool to little kids, but it's too frustrating for them, and it's too easy for older kids. I guess that's a possibility. Ready, Set, Spaghetti got a good verdict, but I don't remember that game either. Next up was Scattergories Jr., which had a yellow box. My family had the red box Scattergories, which was the regular version of Scattergories, and we loved it. The verdict here is good. I think that just the categories are a little easier. So you pick a category, there's a card that has a category on it, and then you roll a dice, and that tells you the letter. An example in the article was ways to annoy the babysitter is the category. The possible answers were things like hide and have a food fight. The kids said sometimes people's answers were funny. We had the regular version. It was great. I have played the regular version with my stepsons, with their grandmother and their aunt. And, it's like multi-generational, easy fun kind of game. It just depends on how good your vocabulary is and how many kind of funny ways you can sort of fudge the question. Like, have a food fight as an answer that starts with H. On the next page, we've got Taboo, which got very good. Taboo is like charades, except you're talking, and you're trying to get your team to guess the word on your card, but the card also has blackout words you can't use. It got a good review, and I would agree. The best game in their article here, their review that got a great verdict, was called The Game of Singlets. You are making up words that aren't in the dictionary, according to the article. I've never played it, so I don't know much about it. So again, if you've played Singlets, let me know in the comments down below. The next article in here that caught my attention is called Video Game Violence, Fun or a Problem? The next page is divided into 2 columns with kids saying it's a problem or kids saying that it's not a problem. On the violence is a problem side, some of my favorite responses. In violent video games, players don't think, oh no, I killed someone. They think, yippee, I killed someone. Games may not turn people into serial killers, but they could harden you enough to make you think violence is okay. Those kids never had any fun in their life. The violence isn't a problem side. A couple of my favorite responses are, my friends and I take pleasure in blowing people up in video games, but at no time do we think about going out in the streets and actually doing it. Another kid says, a game needs to be 50% violence to be fun. I remember playing the original Grand Theft Auto when that was new, which is not a 1991 game. But I remember after my friends got hooked on that game, we played it all the time. Like if we were out in public as middle school or high school kids, if we saw a police car, we'd be like, steal the cop car. Obviously, we weren't actually going to do it, but like in the game, that's what you did every time there's a cop car. You try and steal the cop car. The article does go on to say that studies have shown kids can be more aggressive when watching violent content, but gaming hasn't been studied close enough. The fact that 90s video games aren't super realistic might also be a factor over live-action TV. A Nintendo spokesperson is quoted as saying, we want characters that are less hard-hitting than some of our earlier games. They go on to talk about Dr. Mario in the article, so maybe the thugs and bad guys in Hogan's Alley will be replaced with Dr. Mario throwing his pills at the viruses. One of the things I like in the back of the magazine is there's like little reviews of a bunch of different games and movies and TV shows. That seems to be pretty consistent in a lot of these issues. This particular issue has Dick Tracy, Maniac Mansion, Final Fantasy, and the Ninja Turtles game for Nintendo, I guess. Dick Tracy's Big Beautiful City is drowning in one whopper of a crime wave. I can smell Big Boy Caprice's greasy handiwork behind all this, thinks the ace detective. With a little hard evidence, he could throw Big Boy and his hoods in the slammer for life. Can you find the clues to crack the case? Keith liked the 3D look of the street scenes. Linda called the sound effects wonderful. Both gave the game high ratings for challenge. I still don't know how to get to Big Boy, said Keith. Isaac was less enthusiastic. The action gets more challenging with each case, but the game's pretty basic. It's good for a less experienced player, but I wouldn't recommend it to the pros. I love that one of the kids says about Final Fantasy, I've never played a game where the instruction manual is as long as a novel. 84 pages, says Michael. Final Fantasy is very, very complex. Unless you're very dedicated, advanced player, this is not the game for you. Beverly agreed, adding, the graphics were poor and the sound effects sounded fake. The Ninja Turtles game, which is the game I probably spent the most time playing out of these. Dick Tracy I've never played, but have seen the AVGN episode. Maniac Mansion I don't think I've ever played. Final Fantasy, I did play some of that at my friend's house. Not enough to really matter, I guess, but I did log a few hours playing it. Grew my party some. But Ninja Turtles, Shredder and his band of slice-o-matic bullies are at it again. They've been busting up bystanders all over town. Now they've kidnapped April, friend of the fearless Green Foursome. Time for these pizza-powered dudes to knock heads with the bad guys. You could choose to be any turtle at any point during the game. A great feature, said Nitrin. Alexandria agreed. It means you have 4 different lives, weapons, and talents. All testers gave Turtles high scores for graphics and sound effects. The music was a good thumping beat, explained Tyson. It gets even more dramatic when danger lurks. Any complaints? Nitrin found the game a little repetitive at times, but he joined the other testers with a big bodacious cowabunga for all the heroes in a half shell. VCR movies. So these were out on VHS. We got Dick Tracy, Gremlins 2, Courage Mountain, The China Syndrome, Driving Miss Daisy, and Flipper. Now, Driving Miss Daisy's PG, and The China Syndrome's PG. Not really movies I would expect kids to be interested in seeing, whereas Dick Tracy, Gremlins, and Flipper maybe seem more kid-friendly. Dick Tracy. Ace Detective Tracy is in jail for murder. It's a frame-up. But can he prove it? Being behind bars makes it tough. But nothing's too tough for Tracy. Exciting. With a surprise ending, said Susan. Funny, too, said Tom, who loved the gangsters' weird faces. But Susan said, there were so many gangsters I couldn't keep track of them. Ben found the plot a little thin and one-dimensional. Elena felt some people might mind all the killing and the bad treatment of women. Rated PG. Gremlins 2. Those nasty little fun-loving gremlins are back, ready to destroy the big city building. It was less scary than the first Gremlins movie, and it was funnier, said Ben. Casey found those Gremlins even weirder than the first bunch. But parts were too gross for Phillips, such as when a gremlin is caught in a paper shredder. Pretty gory, said Jessica. PG-13. I mean, this really tells you where to spend your money. TV shows, we've got The Flash, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, The Guys Next Door, and Parker Lewis Can't Lose. The Flash, do you remember the 90s Flash? I mean, everybody was reminded of it when they did the CW Flash, and the actor from the original show came back. The Flash. All our reviewers praised the show about a scientist with superpowers. It has the same eerie presence and amazing special effects as the Batman movie, says Jeff. The characters are just as creepy as they should be, said Robin. It's more of a drama than a superhero adventure, Michael warned. The Flash is an average person, not a rich, flashy guy. The show has good plot and acting, qualities lacking in other superhero series. It's worth waiting a whole week to see, said Shane. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the show's about a teenager moving in with his wealthy relatives, was a hit with most reviewers. It's a great new comedy starring renowned rapper The Fresh Prince himself. It has funny lines, good characters, and a large number of guest star appearances, said Josh. Most shows are based around the rivalry between the quick-witted Prince and his cousin Carlton, said Matthew. There's always a lesson taught, but it's well hidden underneath the comedy, Joy admitted. You don't watch this show for mind-altering discussions about life. It won't make you cry or think, but it will make you laugh. But Todd thought the show rarely offers anything new. The intro rap is original, but the show is mostly the same old stuff. Fun little magazine, a little time capsule from February and March of 1991. If you liked this kind of content, some of these fun things, let me know in the comments down below. I definitely want to revisit at least one more issue. There's an issue that has a thing specifically about toy commercials. And so that one I would definitely like to talk about on the show. But if you guys enjoyed this, I might do this as an episode every once in a while. I've got something for a new to the collection segment here. If you guys recognize the Mattel Creation mailers, according to the silhouette here, I've got Rio Blast in hand. Here we've got Rio Blast in his packaging. The back of the card shows him fighting Modulok split into two and Grizzlor. So they're definitely showing off some of the late-in-the-line characters here for him to fight, which probably makes sense for the era he was released. They would have been the villains at that point in Masters of the Universe. Anyway, it's got that fan-friendly packaging, so the card back slides right out of a blister here. His mini comic, Star Marshal. So it looks like he's got a unique mini comic. It looks like Rio Blast teams up with some anthropomorphic animal people here, like a raccoon-headed guy and a praying mantis guy. And he does ride a robo-horse that doesn't really look like it is Stridor. It's funny because Stridor was always paired up with Fisto based on when it came out in a gift set that existed back then. I didn't have Rio Blast as a kid, but I often wonder now, looking back, if I had had him, would I have paired him with him? Because he really is kind of like Marshall Bravestar in 3030, and that could have been neat. When I was a kid, a friend of mine named Will had Rio Blast, and I remember thinking it was so weird that they did a cowboy. So Rio Blast here looks a fair amount like his vintage figure, but he does have more articulation because he's part of the Origins line. I just popped his arm out by accident, just trying to move it. And he's got wires that come from the back of his shoulders to his forearms. That's kind of a nice detail, but it seems like they're going to be a pain and they're going to pop out all the time. I don't know if that was necessary. It makes me think of the Apocalypse figure from the Toy Biz X-Men line where the wires broke all the time. These are at least made to disconnect, but I'm not sure that they really help him look like he's got hidden guns everywhere. His chest does open up. It's got the little tiny red gun inside there. He's got those flip-out guns on his hands. And then his chaps fold down to have little tiny guns inside them. So Rio Blast is ready to outgun anybody on Eternia. But that's not enough. Flip-out guns? No. He needs more than that. he needs a whole backpack. The backpack is interesting. It has little odd-shaped notches, so it goes in at an angle and then slightly rotates to click into place. And then let's see how this works. You slide it up all the way to the top, and then it tilts down so it can go over his face. He's got like a little rangefinder visor there, and more laser guns, because you just can't outgun Rio Blast. Rio Blast was a guy that was kind of late in the original line and kind of late in classics. There was a lot of joking about no Rio, we riot whenever they would do new reveals, and he got saved to pretty close to the end. He definitely is a character that needs a lot of tooling. He doesn't reuse parts from most of the other Masters characters because he needs the special torso and special arms and special legs. He doesn't have the bare barbarian parts. You know, in this line, they might have gotten to reuse upper arms, but even in the vintage, you know, the arm was all one piece, so it was all new. He does look a lot like He-Man with just a mustache on him, which is kind of funny. And almost works with the original concept for He-Man, where he could be anything, and they you know, Tank Top and Space Ace and the Barbarian version of He-Man. This is what the cowboy version would have looked like. It's kind of the way I've always looked at him. You know, if we took Adam out of Eternia and dropped him off in the Wild Wild West, you know, this is how he'd show up. It's like a fun way to look at him if he's not being used as an ally for He-Man. But, nice figure. I don't have to have him in my collection. Like, he's not if he's not in the line stinks kind of guy to me. Because he's later in the run. But I do think that he's an interesting concept and a fun figure, and I'm, you know, glad I was able to pick him up. I think my version might be missing something. I feel like the gun is missing the visor or something. I have to look at mine sometime, my vintage one, and see if he is complete or not. I know I have his backpack. I think I'm also missing one of his chaps. But this guy stands up real nice, and I think he's a lot of fun. One more item I want to check out is the Collector Evil Airship of Skeletor. This is part of the Cartoon Collection, a toy line I kind of am kicking myself for not jumping in on. It shows basically the whole first couple waves here on the back. He-Man, Skeletor, Merman, Evil Lyn, Webstore, Beastman, Trapjaw, Tila, Man-at-Arms, Stratos, Rattler, not Rattler, yeah, Rattler, is that who that is? And, the spiky guy, Spikor, yeah. And I passed up on all of these guys. I didn't finally get excited about this line until this came out, and the Prince Adam, and now I'm getting some of the Princess of Power stuff. I don't necessarily need all of these, but I wouldn't mind having this He-Man and Skeletor now. I'm a dummy, but I was just kind of getting stressed out and tired of buying the same characters all the time, and felt like I didn't need to buy more cartoon versions of the main heroes. It's a great way to get people into a new line, you know, resell those characters, but I just feel like I've been in that process too many times at this point, and now I've got a little bit of FOMO. So I have not gone and hunted down anything I missed, but I am collecting a lot of the Pop and Horde stuff from the line. What I like about some of this stuff is that they're doing some things we've never had before, right? That was why I wanted the Cringer. That's why I want this, the Collector. I want some of these things that never had toys before. Oh, it's pretty big. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's a little bit, like, flatter than I would expect. I'm not looking at it next to an animation cell, so maybe this is proportioned correctly. But to have this ship, this skull-shaped airship thing, finally in toy form, it's pretty cool. This would get used in the cartoon show all the time. It was sort of like the bad guy version of the Talon Fighter, you know, a multi-person ship. It's got control sticks in here. It's got 2 seats for pilots and a seat in the back for Skeletor. So it's got 2 fins here that have to get plugged onto the top. There we go. That starts completing that look. It's got some techno garble on the bottom there. And there was a bag inside it. So it has some blast effects that we could put into the hands here. Or the pincher claws. so it can be attacking. It has a peg on the bottom, so it looks like it could use one of the flight stands that already exists from this line. Kind of a shame it doesn't come with one. And I got one other question on the inside here. It definitely looks like there's a spot here to connect a control stick or something, but mine didn't come with one. So now I'm a little puzzled. I need to do a little research there. I hope I didn't get one that's missing a part. I'm going to double check the box carefully. Well, no, that's just the little... I took those little connectors that held it into the package and threw them in the bottom of the box and then made myself think that the parts were there. I'll have to look into it and see if I'm missing a piece or not. Maybe it's just a weapon holder. And, but it almost looks like another control stick like this would fit back there, perhaps. Look into that and try and figure it out. But this is pretty fun. It'd be cool to have this hanging near my Motu collection. And, yeah. I love it when we get these things that we've never had before. One of the fan choice things that Mattel had released, options, they're going to do like a snake playset that people didn't really love. For some reason, the final design of it that they showed at Toy Fair the one year. But originally, one of the options was like a Horde tank thing that has Hordak's face on the front, which is similar to this in some ways. I think that would have been a really fun toy to have. So this is neat, and I will look into that part. In the comments down below, let me know if you got the collector or if you picked up Rio Blast. Who do you want them to make in the cartoon collection the most? Before you leave this video, do me a favor, hit the like button. Consider sharing this video with a toy collecting friend. If you want to support the channel further, join us on Patreon. Thanks so much for hanging on the peg with me.